Alright, let's do this Diddy segment. Let's see what's going on for Diddy stuff.
Talk about Diddy trial, they talk about what they perceive to be government corruption. Well, government corruption was on the docket today, this morning, day 11, but it was brought up by the government, and their inquiry in that direction led the defense to be asking the judge to grant them a mistrial. I'm Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. I am down in Southern District of New York every single day, dropping 2 vids a day, covering this trial and giving you legal perspective, as I am a New York litigator who has practiced in this very courthouse. Now, this morning, we heard testimony from first one of the police officers who arrived on the scene of Kid Cudi's house the day that he reported a break-in, which testimony has been brought forward from Cassie Ventura, Capricorn Clark, and Kid Cudi to imply that Diddy and his associate, his bodyguard by the name of Ruben, were the ones who went into his house. Later, days later, when his vehicle was struck by an arsonist, what he called a Molotov cocktail, that led to an arson investigation. And the second witness we had on the stand today was Lance Jimenez, who was the lead arson investigator and looked into the circumstances surrounding it. Now, how did government corruption come up? During the course of his direct testimony, Mr. Jimenez was testifying about the fact that at a certain point he was trying to go to the police to get fingerprint cards from the break-in, try and find the connection there. And that when he searched with the LAPD, the fingerprint cards were missing. He was asked whether or not that was usual. And at that point in time, there was an objection from the defense. And a sidebar, they sent out the jury, and there was a long back and forth. The obvious implication that the government wanted the jury to conclude, at least in the opinion of the defense, and between you and me, I would agree with the defense on this. They wanted the jury to think that Diddy was responsible, or some persons working in connection with Diddy were responsible for having those fingerprint cards removed from the police records. Now, that's obviously a very serious implication, and the Tenny Garagos, who raised the motion for a mistrial, said that the reason they walked down this road was specifically to plant this seed, that he's got connections and that he's trying to he controls the government. And
so this is where they're trying to like tie in like RICO and right, conspiracy, racketeering, stuff like that, right?
The fingerprint records that were taken from Kid Cudi's door when they conducted the police investigation after the break-in in order to help protect him. Now, the reason that you would think that this would be potentially relevant is because it could lead to obstruction, which would support the RICO charges.
Yeah,
and
that's what
in that sense, it could be
relevant.
I
knew it. As soon as he said that, right, all that stuff, it was like, yeah, they're right, because right, RICO in a sense is trying to say, hey, there's some sort of criminal organization, or there's some people who are conspiring, right, together with whether they're using government resources or not, right? Whatever the case may be, there's some sort of corruption happening. And they're, right, organizing, using, right.
In time, seeing as how there's never been any implications that or evidence
using infrastructure
to say that Diddy had any sort of connection with it,
that could lead to someone's demise or downfall or whatever.
Raised the point that at this point, you've now planted this seed. She also pointed out that she didn't like the fact that questions in voir dire, when they were doing jury selection, were talking about issues with respect to people having connections with the police. And that she thought that all of this tied together, and that the questions that were elicited this morning were all designed to elicit a response and a reaction from the jury that Diddy is connected with the police, and that he's pulling the strings, and that if you have enough
Basically,
money
he's
or
organizing
enough
the
political or
police to do
celebrity
his
status, that
dirty
you're not
work.
going to be prosecuted. And that's what she said was brought up by the questions that were raised in jury selection, and that was only cemented today. She
Or
said
there's
no
some
way
favoritism
to unring this
going on,
bell.
right?
There's
Some
no
sort
way
of,
to
right.
take this out. And
They're helping
the
him
judge
for some
said, the judge responded and he asked the government, what is your response? And they said, well, we felt that based on discussions with defense that they were going to challenge the legitimacy of the investigation. We need for the jury to understand that the reason there weren't additional steps taken with the investigation is because those records were missing. Teddy Garagos aptly responded saying that doesn't explain why you're asking follow-up questions as to whether or not that's customary. And the implications of that, the fact that you're asking these follow-up questions, are for the jury to conclude that something very peculiar happened in this circumstance, specifically because Diddy was a suspect.
Mm-hmm.
So the judge ultimately said, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to deny your motion for a mistrial, but I will instruct the jury that the questions that were asked here were improper and that they are irrelevant, have no bearing on this case, and they should ignore the questions and the answers here. This got the government really outraged, and they said, whoa, we don't need to have a jury thinking that we're asking improper questions. We don't think there should be any curative instruction at all. If you want to strike it, you can strike it. We don't think there should be anything curative, but at the very least, don't tell them that we did something improper here, which will have them biased against us. And the judge thought that over and he said, okay, I'll take that out. Teddy Garagos comes back and says, no, they need to know. They need to know that this was really improper, because otherwise this is all planted, buried in their minds at this point. But the judge disagreed with them, ended up giving a curative instruction, telling them they should disregard the entire colloquy there of questions and answers related to anything having to do with the fingerprint cards. It was not really a tense moment. There was no moment there where it seemed as if the judge might genuinely.
I mean, they're trying to throw out red herrings. Hopefully, the jury latches on and might sway them to
convicted here and say that the jury had been tainted by this improper question and answer. But the judge pointed out and said, you sat back and didn't ask objection. You didn't object to anything. And I thought that they were going down to investigate as far as the extent of the DNA. And if you didn't object to it, in that case, and as soon as you did object to it, I sustained and struck down the question. And I think the judge is in pretty sure footing here that indeed, if in fact this ever is reviewed by an appellate court, it seems to me very doubtful that this would end up serving to overturn a conviction should we ultimately get convictions in this particular case. The final witness to come up on the stand was, and is currently on the stand on.
Okay, let's get back to it.
On the stand on direct is a stylist who had worked with Cassie from 2007 through 2018. And this gentleman saw a lot of the exchanges between Diddy and Cassie Ventura. First question up that they was asked is, do you want to, why are you here I'm here pursuant to a subpoena. Do you want to be testifying today? Absolutely not. It's the last thing that any celebrity stylist wants to do, is to be going into a courtroom and ratting on other celebrities. And he has talked about the abusive way in which he personally saw Diddy address Cassie over the period of the 11 years that he was working with Cassie. He seems to have a deep affection on a friendship level for Cassie, as he's very clearly not interested in Cassie per se. He was shown a picture of himself and asked, when in the early part of his testimony, asked, is this you? Who's that? And he said, that's me. Is this what you looked like in 2008, or in and around when you met Cassie Ventura? He's like, no, I look amazing. So yeah, I don't think that he's got anything more than a friendship interest in Cassie
little flamboyant,
Ventura.
yes.
But he definitely seems to have a deep sense of friendship type love for her, and seemed very sympathetic as he talked about how Diddy would address her in some of the most derogatory terms, whether you're talking about a bee or a hoe or a slut, and basically that he would use those terms in very angry and aggressive ways. How he would call her and demand that, because he would go and hang out with Cassie. They would go clubbing together and things of that nature. And this outraged Diddy, that he heard Diddy threaten to release sex tapes, that Diddy withheld release of records, that he threatened Cassie's parents and said that he was going to have them fired and release sex tapes to her parents' employers. And this is what we've gotten from just 20 minutes of testimony from the celebrity stylist, and that is expected to continue into the afternoon session. I'm Joe Neerman. I drop 2 videos a day. I'm here every single day. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell if you want more notifications and legal perspective on the ongoing saga of the Diddy trial.
If you want to take a look at more of his coverage when he does it. He also does live streams as well, if you want to take a look at those. Alright, on to the next segment. Diddy, someone else has got some information.
It is day 11, week 3
Let's
of
see what
the
this
United
person
States
says
versus
about it.
Sean Combs. Right off the bat, I want to let you all know that the defense moved for a mistrial today. It was denied, but it got very spicy in the courtroom. But I'll get there. I'll tell you exactly what happened. But first, let me start with the first witness of the day, someone from the LAPD, a police officer named Christopher Ignacio, 16-year vet. He was working in December 2011 when he was called to Kid Cudi's house for a possible break-in at 8:20 a.m. That's when he was called from dispatch, or he received this call. So he goes there with his partner, lights and sirens on, just in case he doesn't know what's going on. He says that when he pulls up to the house, outside of the house is a black Escalade. And he said he looked at the license plate and he made sure to memorize it. He actually recited it for us on the stand. He testified that he went inside the house. You know, he saw the presents on the table, a watch, some purses. He said that 2 other detectives showed up and they searched the house. Nothing was missing, nothing was broken, and they wrote up a report. He said when he got back outside, he saw the same black Escalade come down a hill. And, you know, he also testified, just going back, after the black Cadillac, or the Escalade, it's a Cadillac Escalade, just kidding. I'll refer to it as both. After the Cadillac drove away, he said that the homeowner's black Porsche pulled up, which we know was Kid Cudi. So, that was pretty much it was a very short, direct, but during cross-examination, which was done by Brian Steele, and by the way, he has really good pace, Brian Steele. He just kind of gets it done. He said, you know, did you see at any point the Escalade and the Porsche next to each other? Like, did you see the Porsche pull up next to the Escalade? And the police officer said no. And he said, so did you see a chase? Did you see the Escalade chase the Porsche up a hill? And he said no, because that's what we heard yesterday from Capricorn Clark. And then, you know, he kind of said, okay, so you wrote this report, you're very detailed, you just told us the license plate number. Did the homeowner share with you anything about a gun, that somebody who broke into his house might have a gun? And he said no. So that was a moment. He said, all right, so, you know, if he didn't testify that there was a gun, like, was it a burglary? What was it? And he kind of just said they wrote a trespassing report. He did say that Kid Cudi appeared flustered, and another point of contention, or I guess trying to discredit Capricorn Clark, was the timing, since they were called to the house at 8:20. I think she said it was somewhere between 6 and 7 a.m. So I think they wanted to point out that discrepancy. But then we got to the arson investigator, and his name is Jimenez. And Lance Jimenez, excuse me. And he's a 22-year vet with the LA Fire Department, and essentially an arson investigator.
I'm pretty sure it's
is like a detective for the fire department. So
usually
this is
the J
where
is
the mistrial comes in. So he was discussing the fact that he was called to the residence of Kid Cudi in Hollywood Hills around 11 a.m. after the fire department got there, because they were going to do an investigation.
Or Jesus.
So We were shown pictures of the car, where it was parked in the driveway, evidence photos, and all of that jazz. Now, the driveway of Kid Cudi's house was really long, and I was surprised to see that the car was parked right in front of the garage, which was closed, and there was 2 other cars parked behind it. So what Jimenez testified was that, his opinion as an expert was that
Get your names correct.
cut the top of the car
Just kidding.
and dropped in
Oh,
this
sorry.
Molotov cocktail, which, my papers, which, by the way, was in an Old English bottle. And he said that there was a silk scarf used, and so he believes that this is why the Molotov cocktail didn't really explode properly, because he said, there was damage to the car, obviously, but it was minimal damage, and he thinks it's because of the scarf. And if it actually did explode and go off, it could have done a lot more damage and even possibly, reach the house. Now, they were discussing
if the car blew up, the car has a bunch of gas in it too,
and all that stuff, and how
it could have been bad.
he sent it off, but he didn't really know that much about the DNA evidence that was retrieved. He said that he knew that there were partial female fingerprints taken from the Old English bottle, and he also said that he spoke to Kid Cudi, and Kid Cudi gave him some names to call, just people who might know things, and he gave him the names of Capricorn Clark and Cassie Ventura. And the defense said, well, did you call these women essentially after you found out there was female DNA on the bottle? And he said that he didn't know. But Cassie did not answer, and obviously Capricorn didn't answer. He also stated that Capricorn's brother kind of threatened him on the phone when he called a few times trying to reach her. And he also said, and this is Jimenez, Lance Jimenez, he said that he actually even contacted Cassie's father, who was a firefighter, who said, okay, I'll try to get in touch with Cassie. Never did. So they also, the LAPD, I guess this is where I'm going with the mistrial. They were able to do a print card, is what it was called, where they took fingerprints off of his door from this trespassing incident, and they were trying to lift other fingerprints off of the bottle of some of the evidence that they found. And so it turns out this print card, the government pointed out that it was destroyed in August of 2012, and it wasn't destroyed at the directive of Jimenez. It was destroyed by somebody in the LAPD, and the government went on to say, did you authorize this card to be destroyed? And he said no. And then they said, was it unusual for something like this to happen, or this card to be destroyed? And then there was an objection. It was sustained, and we took a break. But what happened was the defense said that during jury selection, there was concerns from the jury that Sean Combs and other celebrities can buy their way out of these situations. Correct. So the defense was saying that the government was kind of purposely planting this and using lines of questioning, like they were, to infer that he paid for someone in the LAPD to destroy this evidence. And
because
when they went to move for a mistrial, they're just kind of like, how can they unhear that? That's going to be in their minds.
Yeah, that's like
the
a red
government
herring
said
kind of.
that that there was no prejudice there. We weren't doing that, quote, on purpose. What did they say? Yes. So basically the judge denied the mistrial because the defense did not object until the last question. And I wish I wrote down the other questions. I'll have to refer to the transcript. But then there was a really spicy moment because Alexandra Shapiro, Diddy's attorney, said, well, then Judge, I want you to tell the jury that they should disregard the government's improper questions and obviously the answers. And then the government's like, you don't refer to us as being improper. That's not going to look good. That's not cool. And essentially the judge said, okay, I'm not going to say that you guys are improper, but what I will say is please disregard the questions and the answers. They have no bearing on the case. So he did tell the jury that. you know, they finished up the questioning, the direct and everything, and then we got to the cross by Mark Agnifilo. And what was so crazy is that he pointed out this black glove in the back seat. There was like a lone black glove, and he's like, "Did you guys test this glove for evidence or for DNA?" And they're like, "No." And he said, "Well, you know, where's the other glove?" And he said, "Well, we asked the owner, Kid Cudi, and he said it's his driving glove." And Agnifilo was very much like, okay, well, where's the other glove? Why would it be in the back seat? Just really focusing on the black glove. And I was like, OJ, oh my gosh. So yeah, they just were, let me see, anything else? Oh, and you know, they pointed out the glove wasn't in the report.
So they're saying that
reaching out
Diddy
to
might,
Cassie
or
and
not Diddy, I'm
Capricorn
sorry.
Clark after they saw that the
Kid Cudi might
DNA
have faked
was
it or
partially
something. Is
female.
what they're
He didn't
saying.
know. Yeah, that was basically it for the cross. Then we saw Deontay Nash, Cassie's stylist. And I'll make this quick and I'll get to the rest of his testimony later. But he was funny. He got some laughs from the courtroom. Oh, and before I forget, Diddy's mom and his 3 sons are here, Justin, Quincy, and Christian. And Christian had his arm around Janice Combs for much of the morning. But really quickly, Deontay Nash testified about one specific incident, and I'll go into more detail later about what he said. But a 2014 Vanity Fair party where he and Cassie showed up, and Diddy didn't like Cassie's hair. He kind of like, you know, held up Deontay by his jacket and said, "Go fix her hair." They went to fix her hair and put it up. They came out of the bathroom and Diddy's like, "Oh, I guess it does look better down." He testified a lot more, but I'll get into that later because I'm doing 10-minute updates. Okay.
Well, there you have it. And this is Pop Crime TV with Lauren Conlon. And then this is Tissa Tells, another one who's at the trial. What she has to say.
Or whoever he thinks he is, no, can't.
Hi, guys.
Do not, D-O.
Oh, I don't know. Wait, hold on, babe. I'm on live. I'm going to see you right when I get off of live, okay? So, okay, guys. I'm going to see you right in a second. Hey, guys, what's going on? Listen, just had to come live. We are at the courthouse. There's proof I'm not in my mama's basement with the wall painted gray. That is proof we're at the courthouse. But you guys, guess what? Breaking news. Victim Mia. Mia is going to testify today. Baby, let me tell you something. The fallout from Capricorn Clark is bad. The fallout from Capricorn Clark literally ended Diddy. However, the prosecutor, when I was in that court, I said, golly, if I was Diddy, I'd be like, yo, take it easy. When I say they would just kept that pressure, kept the foot on his neck, they was like, go, go, go. Capricorn Clark ended Diddy. People want to see the RICO, you got it. People want to see the criminal organization, baby, you got it. But the part that got to me is, I said, what are they going to follow up with? They said that, hey, good morning. They said that they were going to bring the fire investigator out, right? He was the one that was going to talk about the arson and the way that they found female DNA on the Molotov cocktail. Now, listen, to me, that don't prove nothing because I know if Diddy got all these goons, he got goonettes. But the thing about the video, the DNA is the federal prosecutor said, stop. That's going to confuse the jury. They said, stop, that's going to confuse the jury. It is partial female DNA, which means it's inconclusive, which means that they got nothing. Which means
they don't
Diddy,
have a person.
Try again. And you know Diddy's going to try, but let's get into this, you guys. It has just been announced that Mia, I think she's either victim number 2 or 4. You know Gina's victim number 3, but like Mark Agnifilo said, Yana, Gina's not coming. And even if he did, boy, Gina would not be a good thing, because if I was the federal prosecutors, she could be like, I love him. He's a good man. He's the best man I've ever had. And I'd be like, roll tape. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Tasha K to stand and talk about that interview that she did with Tasha K, where she let us know all of Diddy's business and the fact that he's been a monster. But anyway, Mia is scheduled to testify today. The prosecution is so confident that they got that ninja dead to rights that the prosecution said, baby, we don't need 6 weeks. It was expected 6 weeks. We think that we can get away with it for 5 weeks. Diddy might go 2 to 4 weeks for his defense, but at this point, what are you gonna say? Cassie was a ho is not a defense. They made me do it is not a defense. Diddy gave me opportunities is not a defense. What the H-E double hocket? What the hell are y'all talking about? I tried something new in my makeup this morning, but You know me when I'm rushing. It never really works. In any case, what else can I tell y'all? So Diddy's doing that. The victim number, Mia, is going to be the one that is going to break down the RICO charge and prove what's been going on. Mia is an alias. Mia is one of Diddy's former assistants. The line's going in right now. I might have to get off in a second, but I'm gonna hold out for as long as I can. Mia is one of Diddy's assistants. Mia is the one, it's an alias that is expected to literally confirm all of the RICO mess. Y'all listen, hold on. He's the one that is expected to confirm. Hey, I'm gonna give a quick shout out to Queen Reen. Say good morning, Tisa. Have breakfast on
So
me. Oh, thank
Mia.
you.
So
Yana,
Mia
let's
is
get
like
into this.
his
I know this is
Diddy's
right?
like assistant or something. Female assistant.
Oh, listen, they're letting people in. Let me get inside the courtroom.
Okay,
Victim
well,
number
there you have
2
it.
is testifying. This is gonna be a big deal. I'll talk to y'all later. I gotta go. Wait, maybe I don't. So victim number 2 is the one. I gotta go, bye.
The fuck? Make a choice, woman. I'm just kidding. Well, there you have it. I'm guessing this was after the fact. Well, there you have Tissa Tells. If you want to take a look at more of Diddy's stuff. That's going to conclude for some of Diddy's trial for today.
Video I saw this. I wanted to ask about this video I saw this morning set to the tune of, I believe, Closing Time, about deportations of illegal migrants.
Closing